Some of us might consider the acquittal of Mubarak, the failure of state building in Libya, the civil war in Syria, the sectarian clashes in Yemen, or the international silence on and approval of crushing protesters in Bahrain, the death of the Arab Spring. We might also say, lucky Tunisia, the only survivor of such a Shakespearean tragedy. First of all, how short-sighted can we get calling a revolution a spring? As if it's a shopping season. Maybe it is for the media industry and the news commercialization machine. At the end of the day, in the 21st century, a news story has become like any other product. The sexier it gets, the more it sells. Having this said, why don't we even call the Arab revolutions Arab Christmas? Why not if it entertains us and uses us to generate a few extra millions and puts them in the pockets of the world's media production machine? A revolution is not a spring picnic in a park or a summer tan by the beach. A revolution is a very long and complex process of attack and retreat in a very long battle between the new and the old, the revolutionary and the counter-revolutionary, until the values of justice and freedom are institutionally fulfilled. A process that can take years and years while we're still continuing to learn about the very long French Revolution that changed the face of Europe and what went right or wrong in its extended course of development. A revolution cannot be labeled as a success or a failure after a one-season TV show while having popcorn. We can only judge long after the battle is over and the dust is settled. In the wake of the Arab revolutions, the EU in December 2011 launched a program called No Disconnect Strategy in order to protect internet access as a driver of political freedom. Announcing the strategy, the Vice President of the European Commission back then, who was responsible for the digital agenda, Neelie Kroes, said, quote, "In 2011, video sharing services helped expose regime abuse. They made us aware and better able to take action. Repressive regimes now understand the power of these networks and have tried to turn them off. They did not succeed, and the EU is working to ensure online rights are respected like offline rights." End of quote. It is well observed that the EU in the past 10 years launched many programs in support of media freedoms. The Samir Award, Anna Lynn Foundation's annual Mediterranean Journalist Award, the Regional Communication Program, and the Program of Media and Culture of Development in the Southern Mediterranean region, among other smaller programs in the field of media freedom and other many big and small programs in the field of human rights. All are facts and actions that show Europe's general interest in seeing values of democracy, freedom of expression, and human rights met and fulfilled. Now, let's leave this general and focus on the details by asking ourselves a very important question. Where is Europe's real position from all what is happening in the Arab region? In order to answer this question, as an outsider who experienced life in 11 European countries and observed European cultures by meeting stakeholders from heads of governments all the way to the homeless in European streets, allow me to share with you 4 snapshots, 2 successes and 2 failures that might help us understand Europe's actual position from the ongoing change in the neighborhood of the Southern Mediterranean. Snapshot 1, Sweden. In a celebration in the Swedish Embassy in Cairo in 2011 for launching an official website in Arabic produced by the Swedish government about their own state, the ambassador explained that this website is a reaction to a 40% increase in the demand of information on European and Swedish systems by young Egyptians following the fall of Mubarak. The Swedish government later also launched a Twitter account and a Facebook page, both in Arabic as well, in order to communicate directly with the Arab youth who forgot about the unpleasant past and decided to seek answers to question on details of how to run a democracy. Now we can confidently say that Sweden has occupied a very special place in the hearts of young Arabs that secures Sweden with a big stock of respect and appreciation beyond interests of the near future. Comment, little money and respect of other people's aspirations can do wonders that a lot of money might fail to achieve. Snapshot 2, the Netherlands. Following the Arab revolutions and the fall of dictators, the Netherlands quickly observed that the old regimes have not fallen yet, and many voices of young democracy advocates have been violently shut. The Dutch government decided to launch a radio station and website in Arabic called Sابق, meaning "Here is your voice," a very valuable and critical tool that is now working as a loud voice for democracy and freedoms by those who were muted in their homeland. The station and the website have recently become a frequent source of trusted news and analysis for a big audience in the region. Comments. Values of democracy can be an easily transmittable message. If a government decides and dares to consistently stand for them. Snapshot 3, the UK. Last week, the UK decided to accept the invitation of the Bahraini government to build a military base in their country by the Gulf, continuing to turn a blind eye to the human rights violations and the regular violence and unlawful detentions practiced against the protesters and human rights activists. Comment, post-colonialist hangover with a touch of the 1960s fashion. Snapshot 4, EU diplomacy. In a period of deadly crushing of protesters by the Egyptian police and army, the period when a constitution was quickly cooked, the period when a field marshal, now president, decided to run for elections despite his promises to the whole world and the EU that he would not do so, Lady Catherine Ashton decides to spend a part of her Christmas vacation in Egypt, regardless of the concerns that this could be locally perceived as an EU approval of such severe violations of democracy. Anyway, the message was sent, and it was very well locally received. Comments? Well, I prefer to leave this one for you. Now my conclusion. 1. Europe in general and the EU in particular by intention are for supporting values of democracy, freedom of expression, and international human rights law. 2. The EU expenditure on supporting the above-mentioned values is very big. However, expenditure on what so-called economic development is more of an indirect support of dictatorships for the sake of stability myth that wishfully might provide Europe with trade partners. 3. In the beginning of 2011, right after the breakout of the Arab revolutions, values have finally won in the classical dilemma of contemporary Europe, values versus interests, where interests have always won. With the first obstacle met, since it was not as spring as expected, majority of EU member states and some units within the EU decided to jump off the ship of values after it has just sailed and quickly take the rescue boats back to the shore they are historically familiar with, the old shore of interests. 4. In addition to member member states' interests, some European companies do engage in dirty businesses with dictators ranging from labor and natural resources exploitation up to providing them with weapons and surveillance technologies to be used against citizens. Letting this happen makes any message of democracy sent to those fighting for it more of a message of hypocrisy than anything else. 5. Despite the fear of the other, European societies strongly believe in values of democracy and freedom for the same other. I would even claim that those values are deeply rooted in the minds of majority of European citizens. However, political representatives of European citizens have a much lower ceiling for the same values of freedom and democracy for that other. Final remark. The EU should not look at itself as an investment bank, where member states are profit-seeking shareholders, and big companies are backdoor brokers of financial transfers, and get away unquestioned. There is no need for Europe to launch more or spend more on democratization programs. In order for Europe to have any message of democracy sent to those in the South, first, Europe needs to be consistent and coherent on all levels before having that message well received and clearly understood as a message of democratic values. Again, the EU is not an investment bank. It should be a political union that works for the prosperity and peace of its own societies, which will only be attained when exporting value of democracy is a higher priority than exporting commodities.